material because I don't have any budget to speak of.
Oh.
But it's a unique collection, and the library has been supportive of it. They pay my salary to do all this. It includes my own work. And what more can you ask for a job? They collect my work, the work of my friends and colleagues and other people who I think are important to collect, whose work will be valued enormously in the future. And so there's a place for it.
Is this the only collection like that in America? Or?
Pretty much. There's some material like it at SUNY Buffalo, for example. There's a good collection of small press materials at the University of Wisconsin, and a few other places have bits and pieces of it, but this is the only place that has this large body of focused material.
Wow. When did it start?
I started working on that in 1998.
So, why did Ohio State have so much William Burroughs stuff at that time?
Well, William Burroughs had an assistant, James Grauerholtz, and he had all this material because Grauerholtz saved everything, all the correspondence, all the manuscripts, everything that related to Burroughs that since Burroughs moved back to the States in the early 70s. And they tried to place it at the University of Kansas, which is where he lived, in Lawrence. But they didn't want it. They thought it was the work of a prevert.
Oh, really?
And we won't have that in our library.
Oh, really?
So Jeff Smith, who's still the head of Rare Books, found out about this and went after the material, and so we have probably the largest archive of Burroughs materials anywhere. There's a big collection at New York Public of earlier material, and some other material here and there, but the collection at OSU is the biggest.
I imagine there's a lot of interest in that, right? Since he's such an icon.
Yes, there is.
Mm. So what are some especially interesting items?
Well, depends on what you're interested in. We have manuscripts for all the, we have a lot of the Naked Lunch manuscript material, and for the books that came after, like The Ticket That Exploded and so on. We have all the manuscript material from the series of 3 books he wrote in the 70s, Cities of the Red Night and that series. We have all that. We have some other material that was never published, which we did publish. OSU Press is committed to publishing a series of scholarly editions of things. And last year we published an edition of a notebook that he kept when he went to Peru and Mexico in the 50s, early 50s. And so we transcribed that, and it's a publication that's a facsimile of the notebook and the transcription and all kinds of other apparatus. And right now we're working on his book, Revised Boy Scout Manual, that was never published in its entirety. Bits of it have been published here and there in serials and whatnot. But I'm excited about that. There was a project to publish it earlier, but the Boy Scouts threatened a lawsuit.
Oh, really?
And so it didn't happen. But OSU Press is going to go ahead with it, and we're working on the manuscript right now. So that'll be exciting. It's a fascinating book.
What's it about exactly?
Well, it's kind of a manual on how to destabilize the state, and it's eerily prescient in terms of techniques. It sounds like things that some of the terrorists and extremist groups are doing now, although it's written with a bit somewhat tongue-in-cheek, and some of it is a bit on the absurd side. It's, Burroughs has this fascinating combination of being a joker and dead serious at the same time, and this book is just full of that attitude. It's hard to separate it out. That's why it's so interesting.
You think it'll cause a stir when it comes out?
Maybe.
You hope so?
Mm-hmm. Just so I don't get arrested.
So next year, you said?
I don't know. We're working on it now. It might be a couple of years. It takes a while to do these things because we're doing a very careful textual edition of it. It's not just a paperback, popular press kind of thing. It'll have a lot of footnotes and variant readings and that sort of thing.
So you're obviously a big fan of his work, then, right?
Well, yeah, he's interesting. I wouldn't say he's one of the major influences on my work, but he's a fascinating character, and I always enjoy reading him. He has this deadpan sense of humor that's very attractive. And in the 60s, after he wrote Naked Lunch, he was doing all this literary experimentation. And that stuff, which was never very popular and still isn't, did have an impression on me when I was in high school and early college. I didn't really understand it at the time, but it made an impression, and it probably has some effect on why I write the way I do today.
Did you know him? Did you ever meet him?
I never met him, no. He died before I had a chance to do that.
So who was a big influence on your writing then? When you were younger, or
well, in terms of what the most important presences in or encouragement kind of thing, the idea of influence is a bit confusing, and I'm not sure what it means exactly. But writers who impressed me in some way or other include Cesar Vallejo, Rimbaud, Baudelaire, Pablo Neruda, and especially in his surrealist phase, Whitman at one point, George Herbert, going back, and I'm certainly leaving out a number of names, but those are pretty important ones.
Why were you attracted to South American writing? So you were born in Chicago, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you moved to Japan for a few years, and then back to the States. Chicago.
No, we moved back to Columbus, actually. My father taught at OSU in the 50s. And we lived here and then moved to St. Louis, where I went to college and part of grad school. Then I lived in Mexico during that time for a while, and then moved to LA, where I finished graduate school. And after graduate school, took a job here at Ohio State, as it happened. It was just sort of the best job that was available at the time, and I've been here ever since. But what was the question again?
Oh, I guess, so when did you become interested in like Latin American literature and stuff?
Well, I guess it was in high school, late high school. I became interested in French literature first, 'Cause it seemed more interesting, less moralistic.